really compare the Focus RS to an Audi A3 like apples for apples, just because the Focus RS was obviously like the top of the line of the Focus lineup or model lineup, and because it's a performance car, it's more geared towards performance versus this, which is I would say an entry-level luxury car. It's definitely not like just a straight-up luxury car. It's nice, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's a luxury car. This may be more in line with like the titanium model Focus, just because, and I say that because I'm pretty sure the titanium Focus was 2.0 turbo, same thing as the ST, and it was supposed to have a nicer interior than like the basic, like just Focus SE or S. So that's kind of why I'm comparing it to that. Something that may be more in line with this, with the RS, maybe like an S3. But then when you really start looking at the performance, like bolt-on per bolt-on, it's really hard to compare. But as far as my experience goes and what I've been seeing and looking into, just, you know, because this is the car that I own, you get a lot more modification per modification out of this car than you would the RS. And the RS was known, or like that platform, like it's you know, it has its reputation for being unreliable once you start getting up there in power. I mean, just to get to 400, like, you know, very few tuners could even scratch that number of making 400 out of a bolt-on 830 tuned car without either adding some type of fueling or just going with a bigger turbo, period. So this car, from what I've been seeing, can easily like make 400. Like it's gonna make 400. Well, I'll say the S3. The S3 will easily make 400, just with the same modifications. If I had an S3, which the difference between the S3 and my A3, which I have an A3 S line, is basically the turbo. So some A3s have the same 2.0 liter engine as the S3. Some have the 1.8. But when they have the same engine, the A3 actually has a slightly smaller turbo than the S3, which in the MQB world or Volkswagen world, those are known as IS20 and IS38. So typically my car comes with an IS20, and you know, it's pretty common for people to swap out the turbo for an IS38, which, you know, is not what I did. But I would say performance wise, they're pretty even. You know, the only advantage I would say that the RS had is that it's manual, so it's like it's more driver involved, but you're not necessarily outperforming an Audi just because it's a manual or just because the driver's more involved. Like, not at all. This car hands down shits on the RS. Like, I'm gonna just put it that way. Like, it shits on the RS performance wise. The RS was full bolt-on, so what that meant for me at that time was I had an upgraded air filter, just because the stock intake was more than enough for the power that I was running. I think I was told you didn't necessarily need an intake unless you were like 500 and above, which obviously I wasn't. So upgraded intake filter. I had the green filter and an intercooler, as well as callus downpipe with full 3-inch exhaust. The intercooler was steam speed, which I would say was performed very well. I never experienced any heat soak. I mean, I didn't track the car, so I can't really say I didn't experience any heat soak, but I did put it, you know, through pull after pull after pull on some nights, and I never really felt like it would cut back on power. And then obviously, like I said, callus downpipe and full 3-inch exhaust. The exhaust itself fuck it, you know, why would I pass up on that? And then this car also has the APR DTR 6054, which I spent a good chunk of time trying to find the specific turbo size for the RS, as far as like inducer, exducer size, as well as the AR size. And I couldn't find the AR size, but I did find obviously inducer, exducer sizes for the turbine and compressor, and I'll throw those up in the video somewhere, or you know, in the description, just so you guys have as a reference point as far as turbo size, kind of. So they're pretty hand in hand as far as the size goes. This car just completely outperforms the RS though. As you guys will see in these clips towards the end of the video, I happened to find a 60 to 100 pull that I did in the RS, and I have a 60 to 100 in the A3, and we're talking about a 2-second difference. And if you're into any type of racing or watch any type of racing, or you yourself race, like legit racing, like quarter-mile times and stuff like that, you'll know how hard it is just to shave off a couple tenths of a second of your time. So like that should give you a pretty good example at how well this car performs versus the RS, which the RS, like I said, did have a custom tune for E30. This car's running on 93, no custom tune. It's just running off of flash and Cobb OTS DSG, which is for the transmission tune as well, because you can't run higher than, you know, factory power levels with the stock clamping forces of the transmission clutch packs. So that's obviously to run it, you know, a little sturdier. But oh shit, I was looking at this guy's wheels and it threw me off. So we're talking about no intercooler, no ethanol blend. Ethanol alone would make a huge difference, like a huge difference in the power output you'd see, as well as the intercooler. The intercooler, maybe not so much, but you would definitely not have, you know, consistent power delivery. You know, after the stock intercooler gets heat soaked, you're gonna see a lot less power being put out. So there's that. So just with those two, like I can't imagine how much faster it'll get. You know, it'll do that 60 to 100 once there's an upgraded intercooler, once it's custom tuned on ethanol. And on this car, well, another thing that I like that's a pro in my opinion is on the RS, yeah, you could run fully 85, and the only benefit to that on that platform was you don't have to worry about mixing or running some type of ethanol sensor to make sure you have the right blend, because anything above E50, from what I could, you know, from what I read, from what I found out, from what I was told, anything above E50 on that platform, you weren't seeing any, you know, gain in power or any gain in performance. All you would see is just you're wasting more gas. On this car, it takes a lot less money just to run E85, like full E85. From what I've seen, all it takes is upgrading your high pressure fuel pump, which you can either upgrade the pump itself entirely or upgrade the high pressure fuel pump internals, or the piston that basically pumps the fuel. Upgrading that, and from my understanding, just with that alone, you'll be able to run E85. Some people do obviously also upgrade the low pressure pump, the low pressure side pump, but I don't think it's necessary. And if there's anyone watching this video who knows a little more about that, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, you know, being wrong and being corrected, because then, you know, the more you know, the better, right? Yeah, this guy has some nice ass wheels. I fuck with it. Motherfucker. But anyways, so yeah, performance-wise, this car shits on the RS. The all-wheel drive is actually a lot better too. So towards the end of my ownership of the RS, I found out you can you can actually download or basically remap how the all-wheel drive system works and how it manages the torque vectoring to where you can add more bias in the rear, because it's what I call fraud wheel drive. And by fraud wheel drive, I mean physically it's not set up as a true all-wheel drive system. It's basically front wheel drive with some rear wheel assistance, like on the A4 and up. And by and up, I mean like A5, A6, A7, blah, blah, blah. On those Audis, you do have a true all-wheel drive system where it kind of looks like a rear-wheel drive transmission setup, versus, you know, versus a front-wheel drive based transmission that then has like some type of transfer unit hooked up to it with the drive shaft to power the rear wheels. So with that system, there's a video that I found where there's a guy, he just floors it in gravel, and you can see obviously the front wheel's spinning like crazy and the rear wheel's just kind of spinning, obviously trying to help move the car along. And it would be the same thing with the Audi. It's just that I just feel like the delivery of it is a lot better. So like with the RS, when I would floor it, it would still spin a lot, as far as the front wheels, where it would just, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the front wheels that are spinning, not the rear. Because on the RS, you can get up to 70% of your total power output into the rear. So the fronts get 100% of the power, but the rear only get up to 70%. So 70% of whatever your wheel horsepower is, basically. I'm pretty sure the Audi is somewhere along that range. I'm not 100% sure, or I don't know what the max power output in the rear is. But anyways, it just feels like it's a lot better, a lot more refined. And on this car, it's actually a lot easier to add a little more rear wheel drive or rear bias into the car. There are a couple options. You could do something like with the Ford where you had forescan. On this is called VAGCOM, or you could also use an OBD11, and depending on your car or depending on your phone, you can either get the Android only, which is a lot cheaper, or you can get the Android and iOS compatible OBD11, and then you literally do that on your phone to where you can just make it have more rear wheel drive or bias, whatever. I think in the app, I'm not sure what it called it. If it just said like more traction or more torque, I don't know. But basically, you know, make it closer to a 50-50 split, which you don't necessarily want to run 50-50 all the time, because that's another thing. This car, when it doesn't need all-wheel drive, you know, it obviously isn't powering the rear wheels and consuming gas and, you know, slowing you down. It's only driving the front wheels. So that's a very smart system to where it uses it when it needs it, but it's actually using it a lot more efficient than the RS was, which I'm pretty sure that was kind of like the same thing that it did as far as its programming goes. But again, like I said, Quattro, just a lot better. Interior wise, I mean, I'm sure you guys will see my windshield's kind of cracked, which sucks. So when I got the car, it did have that crack in the windshield, and I didn't know that. Just like, you know, like Safelite, for example, like just like they replace windshields, if your crack is within a certain size, they'll also repair it, or I guess they like fill it in. I didn't know that, but had I known that crack, I could have had it filled or repaired, because then, you know, come winter time here in Tennessee, it gets cold enough that we get snow or ice or whatever you want to call it, and over time, with the cold snow on my windshield and the defrost on, it spiderwebbed in it, and now it's my full windshield that's cracked. Which, I mean, I gotta get that replaced. I definitely want to get that replaced as soon as possible. Definitely before we hit winter again. But interior wise, the RS was very disappointing. And I mean, I guess at the end of the day, you can argue, I mean, it's still a Ford, and they're not going to change, you know, their materials they use as far as the interior goes and stuff like that. But it just felt very cheap. I wouldn't say Fisher Price cheap. I'd compare that more so to like the 10th gen SIs, because I was in one. I had the opportunity to drive one, and that felt cheap. Like that was cheap as fuck. So it's not like that type of cheap, but it still doesn't feel like a 40 grand car, you know. The seats are sport seats, so it's not like I expected them to be comfortable, but they were pretty shit as far as like, you know, driving for an hour or two. And I never expected them to be, you know, all that comfortable. But then I have other friends who are also car guys, and they have other vehicles, and they have different style Recaro seats. Like I have a friend with you know, like the last model Evo, and talking about, you know, how nice his seats are, like, or how comfortable they are for sports seats. So it's kind of like, damn, you know, it sucks. Which is, it's kind of hard to say like, yeah, they are or they aren't, just because, you know, that's more like opinion based, but whatever. But the interior, no, this doesn't feel like again, it's not a luxury car. It's an entry-level luxury car, I would say. But the interior feels nice. Like the quality of the materials feels really nice. I do miss the heated steering wheel and the flat bottom. So this doesn't have that. I think the facelift models, or like basically like the half, kind of like the Focus, they had their facelift. And pre-facelift models, this car does too. Had I known about that, and had I known about, you know, some of the subtle differences between the S3 and an A3 beforehand, I would have definitely have gotten a facelift model S3, because those, some come with the quilted seats, some come with the same seats I have now, and then a lot of the facelift model Audis have the virtual cluster, and if you haven't seen it, oh my god, that thing is so sexy. And then on the RS, I had CarPlay. I don't remember if I added the CarPlay later on myself, or if it came with it. I think with mine, I'm pretty sure I added the CarPlay. It was a 2017 Focus RS, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it didn't have CarPlay, and I'm pretty sure I added it on later. I know I did a lot, or some significant upgrades to the sync system, and that was all thanks to a good friend of mine, Torque and Tech, or, you know, as his second channel, Polarity. He's the one that told me about it. He's the one that walked me through it, and, you know, I upgraded my sync system from the factory, you know, software that it had. And damn, I miss CarPlay. It's kind of like having an old car that doesn't have Bluetooth, and you have to use an aux cable or like a Bluetooth adapter, and then you get a car with Bluetooth. Like, there's just no going back. Like, you just can't do that. Same thing with the ST. It wasn't push to start, I don't think. Or was it? No, I think it was. But like when I first got push to start, like, wow, like that was a game changer for me. Like, it was just so nice. The RS also had it. This car also has it. So yeah, those interior wise, it's also a much nicer interior. Sorry, I'm at the gym. I was trying to record this before I got here. Interior wise, a lot nicer. I don't know what else I could say. I mean, there's little things here and there, like I said, that I miss from the RS, like the turbo whistle from the exhaust. I do miss how violent it felt, just because it was a manual transmission car. And I miss the air vents. That's another thing, the CarPlay and the air vents. So these air vents, I feel like could be better. I don't feel like when I have it for my lower body or legs and upper body at the same time, I don't feel like it's like evenly distributed. I feel like it's blowing, if I do that, the top goes from 100% to like 60%, and then the bottom is like 40. But the RS felt like, oh, if it's blowing 100% at the top and then I turn on the bottom, it's like they're both at 100%, you know? Or I don't know, I guess a better example would be like this car feels like it goes from 100% up top to like 70% power, and then the bottom is like 60% power, you know? Like it still feels weaker. It just doesn't distribute the air as evenly. It is nice that these have the circular design in the sense of like it's able to focus the air a little better, but I feel like the RS still had just a better what's it called, climate control. It just had a better climate control design and feature. But overall, if I had to give each car a score between like 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, this car definitely like an 8.5, 9. The RS, I would probably score like a 6. And you know, if I had the opportunity to get another RS, would I? Fuck no. Those cars are like 40 something grand. That's, well, I mean, in today's given market, you know, I could get an S3 for like 30 grand, so 10 grand less, and you use that 10 grand to modify it and make it still even better. But from this point, I wouldn't get an S3. Whenever I get another car, the goal is definitely an RS3. So that's another topic of discussion. We'll get into that eventually. I feel like this video's gone on kind of long. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you leave a like. If you're not already subscribed, make sure you do. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.